In 3, 2, 1. Hello, and welcome to this special edition of the WrestleCast. I'm joined by, returning for his second edition on the WrestleCast, Michael, aka at WrestleGrade. What's going on, Mike?
Not much, just hanging out in the wake of All In.
Yes, we're here this evening to talk about All In, the aftermath of StarCast and All In that took place this past weekend in Chicago, Illinois. Your backyard, Michael. So we're going to get a firsthand perspective from you, talking about everything that had to do with All In and everything that surrounded it. So first, let's talk about StarCast, the big podcast convention with tons of live shows and panels and a roast and meet and greets and just the whole weekend full of festivities. So kind of talk about some cool things that you encountered at StarCast the 3 days that event was being held.
I love StarCast. It was kind of like the WrestleMania Access for the very smarky wrestling fan. I was all in it for the meet and greets. I got to meet Cody and Marty Scurll and Hangman Page and Pentagon Jr., which they were all super humble guys because they were able to pull this off miraculously and make it a huge success. StarCast was also just a really good community to see people in real life and go be social with wrestling fans. And just I met a ton of really good people, and it was really weird walking down hallways and stuff, and you'd bump into people like James Ellsworth and Flip Gordon, just big stars, and then you would get to say hi, and then they'd talk to you. It was WrestleMania Access for the humble wrestling fan. I had so much fun.
What was the coolest panel or meet and greet that you actually got to, sit down and be a part of?
It was great to see the Monday Night War debate because they were not pulling any punches. It was Eric Bischoff and Bruce Pritchard, with Bischoff obviously representing the WCW and Bruce Pritchard for the WWF. They just went full backstage, talked about the steroid trial, and it was really funny. And it was awesome to see a backstage perspective on wrestling that I didn't really grow up on, but watched before I watched most of the modern day stuff. So it's cool to have a different understanding on that.
Yeah, I bet you that would be something to be a part of live and in person, because I'm pretty sure they talk real inside stuff that they really can't put out on podcast, that, you have to kind of be there to hear it. So it can only travel that once. Yeah. So anything else that stood out about, did you get a chance to see Conrad Thompson or meet him, bump into him?
Yeah, Conrad Thompson was a great guy. He was just the mastermind of this event, so he was everywhere. He's kind of the dude who was directing traffic when everybody was confused, because for the first couple of days it was a confusing convention, but once they got it figured out, it's super fun. And meeting the wrestlers was awesome too, because they weren't like WWE guys who were like, you're just one of my many fans, get it over with. People like Cody took the time to get to know you and signed and hung out with fans. It was awesome.
All right. So I know that Conrad's saying that that was going to be the only one, but I think maybe after he, gets a chance to decompress and get some feedback, he'll probably get geared up to do it again if they decide to do a second All In. So let's go ahead and get into the actual event that took place on Saturday from the Sears Center. We're going to start with 0 Hour, the pre-show. That was on WGN, so hopefully a lot of people got a chance to see that nationally and took it all in. And it started out with the Briscoes versus Frankie Kazarian and Scorpio Sky, also known as SoCal Uncensored. So SoCal Uncensored, they come out in their Rocky III inspired gear. The Briscoes hit the J Driller and the Froggy Bow connect on Frankie Kazarian, but Scorpio Sky makes the save. The Briscoes call for the Doomsday device, but Frankie Kazarian counters it into a Spanish Fly, and Frankie Kazarian and Scorpio Sky, they get the win.
First thing I have to say about the show was it felt like WrestleMania in there. I've never been to WrestleMania, but I would imagine that's exactly what it felt like. They had the whole stage set up, and I've been to indie wrestling before, and it just felt like a WWE show. All the production was top notch. And then SCU was so hot in Chicago.
Yeah, the people definitely are big fans of them. Scorpio Sky is just amazing, and he looked really good in this match. So big shout out to them. And this was something, and what's cool about this is like some of these matches, the whole build comes from being the Elite, the YouTube series. And it seems like a lot of the fans there were in tune to that series. So it just shows you how big the following is that they have just from basically that's how this got put together, was just, people following that series.
Mm-hmm. It was a different kind of crowd too than anything I've ever been a part of, because if you're going to a Chicago wrestling show, it's just all the Chicago fans, and you can find a ton of casual people in there, but everybody in that arena was a huge wrestling fan. And actually, when I talked to people at the convention, I was one of the only Chicagoans. People were coming from around America, and I saw some people coming from around the world to go to this show.
Yeah. So I mean, like I said, this is probably the biggest thing that's ever happened to indie wrestling ever. And so the fans definitely turned out to be a part of it, to show support and to make history. So shout out to y'all. Kenny Omega, he's interviewed backstage, and he puts over tonight's match with Pentagon as a dream match, and he wants to make it a match for the ages. Then we have the 30-person over budget battle royal. I'm going to take it down to the last four. So we have Jordan Grace, Bully Ray, Colt Cabana, and the El Chico El Luchador, who was tossed out early but not eliminated. So Jordan Grace hits a power bomb and dumps Brian Cage. Bully Ray now comes face to face with Jordan Grace, and he breaks her eyes. Bully then takes Jordan Grace up top and follows her up, but Colt Cabana is there and dumps Bully Ray back to the mat, and then they do the "what's up" headbutt to Bully Ray. Bully Ray tosses Jordan Grace over the top, and he's all alone with Colt Cabana. Bully Ray takes Cabana down but misses the senton splash. Colt Cabana gets a chair and lays into Bully Ray, but Bully Ray tosses Colt Cabana. Chico El Luchador returns, and it's Flip Gordon, and he eliminates Bully Ray to get the win. So the payoff, the book flip, being the Elite angle, and Flip Gordon, by winning this, gets a chance at the ROH champion later in the night. So this was a fun little battle royal. The people were really into it. It was booked really well. Everybody got a chance to do something cool. From Rocky Romero to Jordan Grace to Brian Cage. So I thought this was done really well.
It was actually pretty awesome. I didn't know most of the guys because I'm a very New Japan Ring of Honor mainstream guy, and I'm not watching stuff like PWG. This weekend got me into PWG, but there was this guy, Marco Stunt, in the match who I thought was doing awesome.
Is that the little skinny dude who got pounced out of the ring on the one GIF a couple of months ago?
Yeah, he was doing like Hornswoggle style comedy, but it was like insane because it was to another level. And then when Flip Gordon unmasked, that was probably the largest pop of the night, at least for me, because I'm a pretty big Flip Gordon fan, and it was great to see him finally booked, and I did not expect it.
Yeah, so again, great payoff to the being the Elite story of making sure that they finally got Flip Gordon onto the show by hook or by crook. So good for him. So we move into our main show as we have Maxwell Jacob Friedman, or MJF, versus Matt Cross, aka Son of Havoc, for all you Lucha Underground fans. MJF attacks the arm and then he hits the stuffed draping pile driver, but Cross kicks out at two. MJF tweaks his knee and then Cross hits the diamond cutter. Cross goes up top, he hits his shooting star press, and Matt Cross gets the win. So good opening match. They didn't do anything too crazy. Kept it in the ring for the most part. And Matt Cross, got the win.
I felt like Matt Cross could have done something crazier here, but MJF was an awesome heel. I went in calling him just Miz 2.0, but he actually was really funny during the match, and playing the live crowd was a good job by him. Matt Cross did his flippy stuff, and this was a match announced right at the last minute, so I think that he could have done more of the flippy stuff, but it was an okay match to start off the show.
Yeah, it was, perfect. Like I said, perfect to start off the main show. Didn't go too overboard because you had a whole night full of guys who, were going to step up to that level. So we had Sean Mooney doing a backstage interview with Nick Aldis. Nick Aldis puts over the match with Cody as well as the NWA World's Championship. So we get a fun match as we have The Arrow, Stephen Amell versus Christopher Daniels. Stephen Amell fights and knocks Daniels to the apron, and Daniels is rolled onto the table. Amell flies off the top with an elbow drop, but Christopher Daniels moves, and Stephen Amell eats all the table to the chants of Broken Arrow. Broken Arrow. Special guest, referee Jerry Lynn rolls Daniels back in the ring, and then he rolls Stephen Amell back in because Jerry Lynn wants a proper winner, but Christopher Daniels is pissed. Jerry Lynn removes his ref shirt, and Christopher Daniels shoves him, and Stephen Amell gets a roll-up for two. Christopher Daniels goes back on the attack, landing in strikes to Stephen Amell. Stephen Amell asks for more, and then he throws the bird up to Christopher Daniels. Amell counters the Angel's wings and covers for two. Christopher Daniels hits a backbreaker, and then he hits the BME, and Christopher Daniels gets the win over Stephen Amell.
I was shocked by Stephen Amell in this match. I was just remembering his SummerSlam match with Neville against Wade Barrett and Stardust, and he surprised me there, but this was a whole other level. From an actor to a wrestler, he was just flying, and he took some hard bumps too. He did a coast to coast, which, I couldn't do under years of wrestling training, and then he took a table spot to the outside. I think he definitely has a future in the business if he wants to continue. I was just shocked. I knew that Christopher Daniels was probably calling most of the shots of the match because he's been wrestling for 2 decades, and it was my favorite match of the show at this point, but it definitely got topped.
Yeah, I was very impressed by Stephen Amell as well, especially once he went for the coast to coast and got it. And like you said, he was definitely holding his own, and he was taking as good as he was given. So a good showing by Stephen Amell. So next up, we had the Four Corners women's match between Tessa Blanchard, Madison Rayne, Chelsea Green, and Britt Baker. Tessa Blanchard hits a back elbow, but Madison Rayne hits a crucifix bomb for a 2 count. Britt Baker hits the Fisherman's Buster, and she gets a 2 count. Chelsea Green cuts Britt Baker off. She hits an unprettier, makes the pin, but Baker gets her foot on the ropes. Green hits a destroyer on Tessa, and that only gets a 2 count. Tessa hits the hammerlock DDT on Green, and Tessa Blanchard picks up the win. This was my favorite match of the night, actually. Up to this point, I really was impressed by this. Chelsea Green was doing her like crazy side, and it seems like she kind of has honed it in. It's not too crazy anymore like it used to be, and I was really impressed by this. And Tessa Blanchard is really moving up the ranks really fast. She's really impressive.
this match impressed me too. The crowd was starting to feel a little bit burnt out after the Amelis Daniel match, and then this was the first "This is awesome" chant of the night. Everybody was going crazy, and it was awesome exposure for these women who are some of the best in independent wrestling. And I mean, it's kind of showing WWE with their Evolution show that we have women here that can almost do it better. Tessa Blanchard impressed me the most, though, and I think she has a good career in her future. And Britt Baker came out to Adam Cole's theme song, which I thought was an awesome tribute.
Next up, we had Nick Aldis versus Cody Rhodes for the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship. Brandy Rhodes, DDP, Glacier, Tommy Dreamer, as well as Cody's dog all come out with Cody for his entourage. And we have Sean Daivari, Tim Storm, and Jeff Jarrett come out with Nick Aldis and his entourage. Baby Earl Hebner is the referee. And so we got a big fight feel to the NWA World Heavyweight Championship match. Nick Aldis hits pile driver, and he heads up top. Brandy Rhodes comes in, checks on Cody, and she covers him up. And Nick Aldis hits an elbow drop off the top on Brandy and Cody, and he covers for a 2 count. Aldis slaps Cody around, but Cody fires back with a disaster kick and crossroads, but that only gets a 2 count. They trade strikes, and Cody looks for it, Den's fire, but his back gives out. Aldis goes for the sunset flip. Then Cody gets the sit-down pin for the win, and Cody Rhodes is the new NWA World Heavyweight Champion.
If you remember from the last podcast, I am a die-hard Cody Rhodes fan. So this match was something else, and it was booked like a boxing match more than a wrestling match. These two felt like an actual sporting encounter. They had the entrances that taped them walking from backstage, and the NWA title has been tossed around a little bit in the past couple of years with Billy Corgan buying the company recently. I think this brings a lot more prestige into the match. And this is the only match I've rewatched since the show, because I'm like, at the show, it was kind of slow. They took a lot out of the middle of the match when Cody got knocked out by Aldis's midair punch to go under the table and bleed to create a good visual for the rest of the night. But I just thought this match got better and better the more that I watched it. I've just such an appreciation for how old school this match was. I mean, I have a little bit of bias because Cody's my favorite wrestler, but I thought this was one of his best matches.
Yeah, it was definitely different than any other match on the show. Like you said, they definitely had a slower pace. They didn't take nearly as many chances. I think that big spot where Cody came off and Aldis caught him with the punch was kind of the big high spot of the whole match, really. As far as like, from the outside, of the ring perspective. So, it was really like an old school NWA championship match, like, somebody would have had in the early 80s or late 70s. And, it fit this card perfectly because you had so much stuff like the match that came after it that dealt with so much plunder and stuff like that, that it was kind of like a good palate cleanser right here in the early part of the show to get everybody psyched and primed up for what was yet to come. So Good deal. We had Adam Page versus Joey Janela in a Chicago street fight. Joey Janela sets up a ladder and then a table. Joey Janela lays Adam Page on the table and climbs the ladder. But Adam Page gets up and climbs the ladder and gets the phone that he killed Joey Ryan with on Being the Elite. It was one of these old school phones that actually has a cord to it. I know a lot of kids don't know what those look like. Adam Page beats on Joey Janela with the phone, and then he hits rites of passage off the ladder through the table for the win. Now, the visual of that was sick because the rites of passage is basically like a backwards tombstone pile driver. Like instead of having the guy in the front, you have him kind of hanging off your back. And yeah, so they went off a ladder through the table for the win. After the match, literal walking dicks make their way out as Joey Ryan is revealed to be alive. He's resurrected. Adam Page is shocked as Joey Ryan makes his way to the ring. Joey Ryan oils up, and Page yells that Ryan isn't real. Joey uses his dick to attack Page, and he does the dick flip to Adam Page, of course. Joey then lays Page out with the super kick, and then the dicks carry Adam Page away to the back.
This was the complete opposite of the last match. I mean, it was just no build, but just all really silly spots. I loved it, though. It was all being the Elite, just silly storylines building up upon each other. And just this is also the second Chicago Street fight I've seen live this year. And the other one was Gargano versus Ciampa. So I like this one a little bit less, but just because that one had a little bit more storyline. But Janela versus Page was crazy. Like, they did spots that I would have never imagined that they would have done, like the rite of passage off the table and the dive off the Cracker Barrel into the crowd by Janela. That was the product placement on this night was just very smart. And the Dick Druids.
Yeah. To set this up, they came out, the walking dicks, they came out like the Druids, the Undertaker's Druids, with the low light and the music and everything. So yeah, it's definitely a parody of the, you know, Undertaker anytime that he's come back in one of those grand fashions. So
pro wrestling can be whatever you want it to be, and this was like a prime example of that. It's just a silly sport, isn't it?
This is the WrestleCast special edition review of All In. I'm joined by Michael of WrestleGrade, and I'm your host, Don Delarente. So we're going to get into the ROH title match between Black Machismo and Flip Gordon. Flip Gordon hooks up and lays in big rights and does the Hulk Hogan point. He hits a big boot, and then he hits a Pele kick and a springboard sling blade. Flip Gordon goes up top, but he jumps back down, and he hits a Samoan drop and a running shooting star press, and then a corkscrew moonsault for 2. They head up top, and Jay Lethal hits a super cutter from the top, and then a lethal injection, and Jay Lethal gets the win and retains the ROH title. After the match, Bully Ray attacks both men, and he gives a low blow to the genius, Lanny Poffo. Bully Ray gets a table, and that's when Colt Cabana arrives to make the save. Colt Cabana, Jay Lethal, and Flip Gordon, and then triple powerbomb Bully Ray through the table and stand tall.
So the crowd was completely blown away by what they just saw from Joey Ryan at the beginning of this match. So it was just awesome to see Black Machismo, and then the crowd was kind of quiet for a few minutes. And then Flip Gordon always does. He picked up the pace and did all of his flip stuff. And I think Jay Lethal was really good in this match. I don't know. His Ring of Honor title reign kind of started unceremoniously. And so I think he needs to continue to prove himself because it's his second reign now.
Yeah.
And I think he's one of the best Ring of Honor wrestlers. And I think he can continue to put on banger matches. But I think this got really good towards the end when Flip got into flippy shit mode and then put on some great sequences. And then I really like the ending too, with Lethal doing the super cutter off the top rope and then the lethal injection. I really enjoyed all the Black Machismo stuff, but if I'm being honest, I didn't enjoy the Bully Ray stuff. He's just such a heel that I actually dislike him. It's like X-Pac level heat from when he was getting that. It's good to see Colt Cabana, though, the hometown hero, put him to rest, though.
Yeah, you then Billy Ray's doing his job. He's definitely living up to the moniker of being a heel if you don't like him that much. So
Hmm.
yeah, tip of the cap to Billy Ray.
Yeah.
You got one hater out here for sure.
He's got a lot more.
Kenny Omega is next up, and he's facing Pentagon Zero, as they call them on this show. Kenny Omega hits a package pile driver for a great near fall. We get a V trigger by Omega, and the one wing angel is countered, and Pentagon Jr. looks to break Kenny's arm. The package pile driver connects, but Kenny Omega survives and kicks out. Pentagon looks for a super kick, but he gets countered, and Omega hits a V trigger. Then we get a reverse Hurricane Rana for a 2 count. We get the V trigger, and the one wing angel finally connects, and Kenny Omega gets the win. After the match, the lights go out, and then they come back on. Pentagon Jr. gets up, and then he starts to kick the shit out of Kenny Omega. Then all of a sudden, he hits a code breaker, and he starts to unmask, and it's revealed that it's Chris Jericho. Jericho hits another code breaker, gets on the mic, tells Kenny Omega that he'll see him on the cruise, throws the mic down, then he gets on a private plane with a glass of Tito's, and he puts it on Instagram, and he says he's going to do a show in Kansas City because he's a rock star, baby.
This was quite something to see live. It was the best Japanese wrestling had to offer versus the best Mexican wrestling has to offer. It was just the angel versus the darkness. It was just great. I feel like it could have gone longer, but Omega is still healing injuries from the G1, and Pentagon really hung with the best in the world in this match. He was obviously less of a star than Kenny was, but he was over with the Zero Miedo chants, which was pretty awesome. Whenever he would get just slapped in the face, he would square right back up and do the Zero Miedo. The ending was great too, with the near falls and then Omega doing the package pile driver. But my favorite spot of the match was the Pentagon Jr. package pile driver on the apron. That was some of the crazy Joey Janela versus Hangman Page level spots.
Yeah, I can't believe Kenny took that. Like you said, he's still healing up from the G1. I can't believe he took that.
Yeah, if it would have went a little bit longer, I like to do my star ratings. That's a thing I like to do and not talk about them like they're religious, but give this match 4 3/4, and I think they could have stretched it to a 5, but still awesome to see. And then it's the first and last time I'll mention this name on the podcast, but when the lights went out after the match, I thought it was CM Punk. I was guaranteed. I'm like, it's finally the time for him to come out at All In. So I was a little bit disappointed when I saw Y2J, and then I shook it off, and I'm like, it's friggin' Chris Jericho here. That's awesome. But when those lights went off, man, I just looked around, and I was like, it's finally time. But they succeeded without him, and that's huge pops to the Bullet Club.
Chris Jericho once again proving that he can do whatever the hell he wants in professional wrestling. He can show up everywhere, anywhere. You just never know. He's swerving people left and right. So you know he's the man, and he's breaking down all types of walls, just like the song says. I mean, it's the first show he's ever appeared on outside of WWE in the United States since his WCW days. So, you know, that's just a huge get for those guys at the last minute. And to give everybody a shocking surprise that they definitely weren't counting on. They were counting on something. And like you said, they thought it was going to be CM Punk, but they got Chris Jericho. So still gives everybody a wow factor to say, oh, man, I got to see Jericho do something cool, and I didn't expect it. Then we move on to the semi-main event. But before that, we get the asshole hand guys from being the Elite. They're making fun of Marty on his way to the ring. So he does his breaking their finger spot. So that was a real cool thing to lead up to the match. This crowd was really here for Marty Scurll. I don't know if they felt like this was going to be his send off or what, but they were really into Marty and into this match. It's the Rainmaker and the true Rainmaker, Okada versus Marty Scurll. The Okada entrance was fantastic. It was the traditional long coat Okada Rainmaker bucks falling from the sky. Did you get you some Rainmaker bucks, Mike?
Almost. They were fighting for them like baseballs at a baseball game. It was crazy.
Yeah, man, those things are collector's items. Because I'm pretty sure they might have had like some special little all in something on them, so they were made special. I'm pretty sure they had something to differentiate them from the regular, Omega Bucks, Okada Bucks, excuse me. But so Marty Scurll blocks a Rainmaker, and he does the broken finger spot. Then Okada hits the $1 million drop kick, but Marty counters the Rainmaker into the chicken wing. Okada fights his way out of the chicken wing, but Marty gets the chicken wing again. Okada escapes, and this time the ref gets taken out. Marty hits Okada with the umbrella, and then Scurll hits his own Rainmaker for a 2 count. Okada then counters the chicken wing and hits the Rainmaker. Marty dares Okada to bring it on. He fires up, but Okada hits another Rainmaker, and then he hits a third Rainmaker to finally get the win.
So I went to this show with my dad, who knew nothing about the former being the elite buildup, but knew a very little bit from watching the press conference. And he loved Marty Scurll because I think Marty Scurll is the underdog, like anti-hero. Like, he's not so cheesy that you boo him because people don't want you to like him, like Roman Reigns. But he's comedic, and he's the guy you want to see beat Okada, but it didn't happen. And then my favorite moment, I think, of the night was when they knocked out special guest referee Tiger Hattori, and then Scurll hit Okada with an umbrella, and then hit the Rainmaker on Okada. That was a crazy near fall because it's like Scurll finally did it. He cheated to beat Okada, but no, Okada's still a legend. This match, standalone, is probably one of my favorites of the year. It was just such a great wrestling logic match. And I know that's an unpopular opinion to call this one of the matches of the year, but it did go 12 minutes over time limit, which leads into the next match.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, we'll talk about it once it's all said and done, but maybe this was the swan song for Marty Scurll because, like you said, they kind of went way longer than they should have. So that leads us to our main event where we have Phoenix, Bandito, and Rey Mysterio versus the Young Bucks and Kota Ibushi. Rey Mysterio tags in and he runs the Young Bucks into each other. A 619 is blocked and the Meltzer driver is cut off by Phoenix. Bandito hits a Hurricane Rana to the floor, and then Rey hits a 619 and the Luchas run wild while Rey hits a frog splash for a 2 count. They set Matt up top, and Bandito hits a Spanish fly fall away slam for 2, but Nick makes the save. Nick is cut off by super kicks, and then we get super kicks for all. Ibushi gets back in, and we get more bang for your buck on Bandito for 2 as Phoenix makes the save. The Young Bucks hit the Meltzer driver, and they get the pin on Bandito. So, as you said, they were rushed in this particular match. They got cut down about half the match that they had planned, but still, it was awesome because you put these 6 guys in here who can do all types of crazy flips and stuff and make them speed up and go faster. That's cool.
It was one of my finer flippy shit matches. It was great. Rey Mysterio back and forth, and Bandito was really great too. It was my first Bandito match I've seen, and he just really showed up. I think this match could have been match of the night though. And when I was watching in the arena, I forgot about the Fight TV sponsorship that they had put this on Fight TV because I knew that Honor Club was going to let the pay-per-view go long. And so, but Fight TV was why it had to end at 10. So I think I got to see closure. I got to see all of the Bullet Club come down and talk about the show. But once I rewatched it at home, I felt a little bit like if you were just watching this at home and been excited for it forever, you would feel a little bit gypped. And I think this was a weird choice for the main event too, because it would have been awesome to see Cody and Aldis in the main event, and then Cody grabbing the NWA title, like feel good moment to send everybody home happy. Because I think this main evented because it was supposed to be a classic. But they rushed it. When you're watching it at home, you can see Nick Jackson's like, it's time to go home. And then Phoenix breaks up a pin and then realizes he wasn't supposed to do that. So just stands awkwardly ringside while they have to put away Bandito. I like this match a lot, but feel like it could have totally been on a whole other level. But I'm going to talk for a second about what happened after the match. So all of Bullet Club, other than Marty Scurll, came down to the ring, further continuing the talks of a send-off, and just talked about possibilities of an All-In 2, and talked about how much of a success it was. And they all said it was their favorite match of the night, or not the favorite match of the night, favorite night of their careers. And they did talk about WWE and Roman Reigns and how WWE is fantastic, but there are opportunities for people who want to watch different wrestling now, which hasn't always been the case. So I really appreciated this show for being able to show that if you just get tired of Roman Reigns down your throat, WWE is great, but you can watch stuff like this, which was the main point of having this show, to show people that wrestling is just a whole other world than it used to be.
Yeah, Billy Corgan definitely has had the kind of right idea to say, hey, there's only $1 billion company, and there's no way that one of us is going to be able to compete. But if we all gang up together in some shape, form, or fashion, then, we could collectively put together something that will get a whole different set of eyeballs, that will have maybe not as many fans, but just as much passion, and probably deliver a better product if they, continue to work that way. And so, you had guys from Impact, you had wrestlers from, New Japan, ROH, PWG, you had just different types of wrestling outside of WWE represented in just about every shape, form, or fashion. So that was what was really cool about it as well.
Yeah, shout out to PWG too, because I feel like they are way too underrated. I bought a ton of wrestling DVDs and just watched them over the weekend, and man, some of my favorite matches of the year so far have been on those PWG DVDs, and it was awesome to see dudes like Joey Janela and Bandito live for the first time and be shocked by how good they were, and then go home and be able to continue their research. Just opened up more of a world.
Now, a part of the live experience is the cosplay. So who'd you see? What did you see that stood out to you as people dressing up over the 4-day weekend here?
They had some pretty good Kevin Owenses, honestly. Like, that was probably the best thing I saw. They had a good AJ Styles and Asuka. They had run cosplay. They had a ton of vendors at StarCast that were related to cosplay, and so there were people just coming in and out dressed like, it was mostly WWE guys, but I saw a couple good Young Buckses. Never a Cody though. Like, I guess that's hard to cosplay. I mean, I was thinking about going platinum blonde and working out a lot to go to this show, but I decided not to. Would have done my own Cody cosplay. But cosplay was pretty good at this convention. I mean, it was my first wrestling-related convention, too. It's great to see all these people live that love the same thing as I do.
So would you think that this could be maybe a permanent home for this? Like if they decided to go, I know they're maybe talking about trying to go bigger, maybe do 20,000. So that makes people automatically think, MSG or some type of, the Forum in LA or something like that. But do you think that maybe that they should just kind of keep it here in Chicago where it's kind of centrally located? It's real easy to get to from wherever, whether you're international or here in the States. Do you think maybe they should just kind of keep it there and that just be the home of this new indie type of WrestleMania?
I mean, obviously, I want them to keep it there so I can keep going. But yeah, I feel like Chicago is a really good market for wrestling, and that it might have gone differently if it wasn't in Chicago. I also feel like they could test with California, but California has been a very WWE-centric place for a while. But New Japan and Ring of Honor did just sell out Madison Square Garden. They're WWE's like flagship arena. Yeah, I want it to be in Chicago, and I think a lot of it will be in Chicago, but I wouldn't expect this to be a yearly thing. They look so tired. I think they're going to do another All In, and I think it's going to be much bigger. They're wrestling arenas in Chicago, though, so they have United Center, which is like a 30,000 seat place, and then they have Allstate Arena, which WWE is under contract with. So if they think they could sell 30,000 seats, they got to put all their poker cards on the table and go all in for that.
Yeah, that's a lot, and yeah, I heard that it's hard to get that many people in the United Center. I think WCW at the height of their run might have been one of the few people to actually sell it all the way out. That wasn't like a sporting event.
Yeah, they up until recently they had WrestleManias there. I think they had WrestleMania 22, if I'm right, in United Center. Mm-hmm. So, that used to be their home, and then Allstate Arena signed them to a contract. So WWE might own Allstate Arena, but I think that's the next step probably for them. I mean, it was really weird driving by, seeing that wrestling has taken over Chicago, because you see to the right, Raw is in Chicago on October 8th, and so there was a Raw billboard right next to an All In billboard. Just driving by Allstate Arena, it was interesting to see how wrestling has just totally changed the landscape of the city. And Pro Wrestling Tees too was busy. I go there on a frequent basis, and it was just people lined out the door, even when there wasn't Punk or Okada meet and greets, which they had over the weekend. Chicago's probably, and I'm a little bit biased, one of the best indie wrestling markets right now.
No, that's awesome, man. I'm glad that I got a chance to talk to you about your experience. Glad you hit me up about trying to put together this podcast, and so we can just kind of hear about such a cool event. Definitely something that started on a dare. Dave Meltzer, opened his mouth and said, "Yeah, indie wrestling's big, but it's not like they could ever get 10,000 people to one event." And Cody said, "Hold my beer," and he grabbed the Young Bucks, and they through the power of being the elite and YouTube, basically pulled it off. So congratulations to them. And Michael, at this time, if you want to give shout outs, let people know where they can follow you on Twitter and where they can follow your website and where they can read your reviews.
I'm on WrestleGrade.com, and my Twitter is @WrestleGrade. I mean, it was pretty easy to snag that name because nobody had it. So WrestleGrade is pretty much my home for reviews and news and all things wrestling. And shout out to Conrad Thompson, I think, too, for putting together such an awesome weekend event, and then Cody and the Bucks for the huge show.
All right. My one shout out would be just for everybody that's listening to just try out the new CSPN Patreon page. Go over to patreon.com/CSPN Media. Sign up to become a CSPN Backstage member, and you'll get some exclusive podcasts from all the shows here on the network that don't show up on our regular feed. So We've got some, behind the scenes, some, things that happened before some of the regular podcasts get recorded. And we've got brand new shows that some of our hosts also do as well. So please go over to, like I said, our Patreon page at patreon.com/CSPN Media. So for Michael, I'm Don Delarente. This has been a very special edition of the WrestleCast as we reviewed All In. Thank you for listening. Thank you, kind sir. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, for sure.
No problem, man. I may actually stay up a little bit later and edit this out and put it out first thing in the morning. So it shouldn't be too bad. I got to post a couple of other podcasts right fast. But yeah, I'll let you know. I'll definitely, you'll see it on Twitter with your tag and everything on it when I do drop it. At the latest, it'll come out Thursday.
Cool.
All right, man.
All In had this whole podcast row thing. I think All In 2. WrestleCast should maybe get on that.
We'll see, man. We'll see. I don't know if we generate enough traffic to get on Conrad's radar, but maybe in another year we'll have that invitation extended.
Yeah, I feel bad about not making cards for my website because I met Dave Meltzer and I'm like, you should check out my website, and I'm like, just WrestleGrade, so he's probably never going to check it out. But it was wrestling journalism. There was a really interesting thing too, because I've been into that for a while. I don't get awesome numbers on my website, but would have been a good opportunity. So All In 2, maybe.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Now, you got to kind of take the lay of the land, and now the next time you'll be more prepared for what you need and everything like that.
Yeah, my numbers went up decently after the last podcast when people were interested in my thing and then checked out my website, and then I was gone on vacation for 2 weeks. And then
timing couldn't have been any worse, right?
Yeah, I just got to consistently keep it up. And now when I'm just trying to be on a WWE pay-per-view basis, it's going to be hard. But
you're not missing anything by not watching Raw, man. It hasn't really been that great. SmackDown has been more consistent and enjoyable to watch. Raw is just, they're gumming up a lot of the works, and it's just, it's not a lot of interesting stuff going on. Can only watch Baron Corbin and Finn Balor wrestle each other 6 weeks in a row for so long.
I mean, I saw Shawn Michaels and Undertaker. I saw Undertaker came out, and then I switched over channels really quick. But I mean, they're just doing that for ratings, I think, because they've got that one Super Showdown thing, which just reminds me of the Greatest Royal Rumble, which was a bad show. So
yeah, plus they gotta try to do what they can because football is coming back, so they gotta try to put as much as they can to try to draw people away from football.
They got to be doing more than they have, though.
Yeah. Well, see, the problem is that the old guys can still draw a rating. They can get my friend, she hasn't watched wrestling in 15, 20 years. And last night I was like, well, I could come over. And then it was like, nah. So we were like, okay, it'll just be this weekend or whatever. I was like, okay, I'll give you a break from watching wrestling this week. And she kind of laughed, right? So then this morning, she texted me with the YouTube thing of Shawn Michaels and Undertaker in the ring. And she was like, now see, this right here, but he got me to watch. And I was like, of course, right?
Yeah.
So their old guys can still draw people to the TV. It's just that nobody believes in any of the new guys.
That's the issue, and they're not building up the new guys to be as legendary as the old guys.
They don't know how. They don't know how. But you know why? I'm going to tell you why. Because the fans dictated it before.
Yeah.
And they would listen to the fans, and then they would craft a way to get the fans what they wanted. That's why All In was such a success. People wanted to see Flip Gordon, they got it. People wanted to see Cody win the title, they got it. People wanted to see Kota Ibushi and Rey Mysterio have an exchange for whatever long. It wasn't long enough, but they got it. WWE doesn't give you anything that you want.
Mm.
Every time you think they're gonna give it to you, they swerve you, or you get a non-finish, or you know what I'm saying. So you never really feel like I went here and what I wanted to see happen tonight.
I mean, that's not just. We like to blame everything on Vince McMahon, but that's just the corporate agenda. WWE's got just can't be the free company they want to be anymore. They just have all these sponsorships and stuff who have to watch over them, and it makes their products less enjoyable for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's what happens when you become so big that you have to go that corporate route where you can't keep it all contained because you want to make more money. You want to be seen as a bigger entity. So there's a lot of things that you sacrifice, and that's definitely one of them. Is the ability to kind of be loose and as free and on the edge as they used to be. And it definitely hurts their product because they don't have enough heels that are entertaining enough to carry the show. See, that's the thing that people don't understand. Heels make wrestling work. But if you don't have good ones and you don't have good ones who can wrestle really well, talk really well, or do both, then the show kind of drags along because the good guys aren't that entertaining. They can't be that entertaining based off they're good guys.
I mean, and you know that the writing team has the capability to do awesome stuff with the characters. Just look at NXT and Velveteen Dream and Ciampa. But it's just with the corporate eye always watching them, they can't do it. And the corporate eye is not on NXT. They're just like, oh, these guys are learning how to wrestle. Let's not look at that. But
yeah, and plus Vince is the final editor, and if Vince doesn't get it, then Vince doesn't approve it, and it doesn't go anywhere. So you're fighting that too.
Yeah. But I feel like Vince has gotten a little bit more touch than I feel like we give him credit for. I mean, back in the day, he was doing all this stuff with Austin that got super over. Nowadays, it's just Vince did the stuff with CM Punk, though. But that was long ago. I don't know what last person he put over was Kevin Owens, and I don't even know what he's doing right now.
Yeah, Kevin Owens is in limbo right now. Like all the two guys everybody who was on SmackDown and then came back to Raw, they've been in freaking limbo.
Yeah, Jinder Mahal, man, that made me so mad because he's not horrible. His last match against AJ Styles at Clash of Champions was okay, and then now he's doing his like Shanti like meditation stuff backstage. That was, you got to do something better than that. And they have too many people on the roster.
Yeah, and what sucks is back in the day, if your gimmick sucked, you could come to Vince and pitch them something, and they might be able to run with it. Now I don't even think they go that route anymore. I think the last people who actually got a chance to do that was New Day.
Yeah, but they're doing awesome right now. So
yeah, well, he didn't start out that way.
Yeah.
So, well, all right, but I appreciate you once again, man. Have a good weekend. Good luck in school this year. And if there's something, if something else like this happens, pops up, reach out to me, man, and we'll try to do another special episode.
Okay, cool. Right, thanks for having me.
No problem, Mike. Be good, bud. Later.
Okay, later.